Hello everyone, this is Prasanjit Ghosh and welcome to the Masterful Master. Today we'll be discussing about the 18th century British literature. During the 18th century, Britain experienced vast social, political, economic and existential changes that greatly influenced the literary world. This period was called by several titles. It was called as the Age of Enlightenment, Neoclassical Age, Restoration Age, Augustan Age, Age of Johnson, which was also called as the Age of Sensibility, also known as the Age of Transition, Georgian Era, Pre-Romantic Period, and many more. Let's look at the main ideals of this 18th century. The first one is rationalism. It is the belief that action and opinion should be based on reason. The second one is secularism, the application of scientific theories to religion and society. The third one is scientific method followed by cosmology and optimism. The 18th century saw the birth of a new literary movement called as the Neoclassicism. Neoclassical literature was written between 1660 and 1798. This era was also called as the Age of Enlightenment or the Age of Reason, which emphasized on reason and logic. The Neoclassical period was preceded by the Renaissance and was followed by the Romantic era. In fact, this period ended in 1798 when Wordsworth wrote lyrical ballads. Parody, satire, essays, letters, fables, melodrama and rhyming with couplets were the different types of literature written during the Neoclassical Age. Neoclassical Age can be divided into three stages: Restoration Age, Augustan Age and the Age of Johnson, which is also known as the Age of Sensibility or Age of Transition. The period from 1660 to 1700 is known as the Restoration period. It is called as the Restoration period because monarchy was restored in England. This age is also known as the Age of Dryden. It is called as the Age of Dryden because John Dryden was the representative writer of this period. The restoration of King Charles II in 1660 marks the beginning of a new era in the life and the literature of England. Theatres were reopened during Restoration Age. During the Restoration period, there was a rapid development of science. The establishment of Royal Society of 1662 was a landmark in the history of England. Coffee houses were built due to which coffee culture started. There was a restoration of the Church of England as the national church. Charles II died in 1685 without an heir. Charles was succeeded by his brother James, who reigned in England and Ireland as James II and in Scotland as 7th. The Glorious Revolution, also called the Revolution of 1688, took place from 1688 to 1689 in England. It involved the overthrow of the Catholic King James II, who was replaced by his Protestant daughter Mary and her Dutch husband William of Orange. There were two parties in England at that time, Tories and Whigs. Tories favoured monarchy and supported King Charles II. Whigs believed that Parliament should have more power than the kings. Whigs opposed Charles II. During this period, the emphasis was on reason. This age is known for its use of philosophy, reason, wit, skepticism, and refinement. More emphasis was on science and natural facts. This era witnessed the earliest beginning of literary criticism. There was an appearance of the comedy of humours and the comedy of manners. We'll understand the comedy of humours and the comedy of manners in the later part of this lecture. Restoration literature was realistic. It was very much concerned with the life in London and with the details of dress, fashion and manners. The work of the authors of the Restoration period was imitative and lacked creativity and flight of imagination. The theatres, which were closed in 1642, were reopened during the Restoration Age. We generally notice two kinds of development in this period, namely the heroic plays and the comedy of manners. Restoration drama is divided into two: heroic plays and comedy of manners. The heroic plays showed the heroic qualities in noble men. Women were described very beautiful. The tragic drama of this period was made up of heroic plays mainly written in heroic couplets. Heroic couplet are rhyming pairs of verse in iambic pentameter. The main character in these plays was torn between the duty to their country and their duty as a lover. In these dramas we find brave heroes and beautiful women. John Dryden was a famous dramatist of Restoration period. His best heroic plays were The Conquest of Granada, Aurangzeb, and Tyrannic Love. A new type of comedy called comedy of manners appeared in the end of the 17th century. It was introduced by Sir George Etheridge. It was written in prose. These plays were witty, difficult, bright, and heartless. It was mainly confined to the rich, courtly, and fashionable circle of London. George Etheridge wrote The Man of Mode, which shows immoral manners of the society. William Wycherley's best works are The Country Wife and The Plain Dealer. William Congreve was the best and finest writer of comedy of manners. Old Bachelor was a perfect comic picture of hypocritical society. The Double Dealer is about angry lovers. Love for Love is funnier and contains clever speeches but foolish characters. His best play is The Way of the World. The Restoration marks the beginning of modern prose. John Dryden was one of the greatest prose writers of this period. He wrote Essay on Dramatic Poesy. In this work, he compares English drama and French drama. John Bunyan wrote two allegories, The Pilgrim's Progress and The Holy War. John Locke wrote Essay on the Human Understanding. Samuel Pepys's famous diary is considered as a prose work. It gives the true picture of social life of that time. The poetry of the Restoration period was formal, satirical, realistic, and written in heroic couplet. Dryden was a dominating figure of this age. His poetry can be divided under three heads: political satires, doctrinal poems, and the fables. Under political satires, we have the Absalom and Achitophel, and we also have the Medal. Under doctrinal poems, we have the Religio Laici and the Hind and the Panther. Under fables, we have Palamon and Arcite. After the Restoration era comes the Augustan Age. This period was called as the Augustan Age as the writers during this period imitated the Roman writers like Virgil and Horace. These Roman writers were the writers who were writing during the reign of Roman Emperor Augustus. After Queen Anne, George I took over the throne. He was not liked by many. It was a satirical era with writers such as Alexander Pope, Jonathan Swift, and John Gay. Alexander Pope dominated the Augustan era with his satirical poetry. He became a master in the use of rhymed heroic couplets. Pope founded the Scriblerus Club with Swift and Gay. An essay on criticism is one of the first major poems written by Alexander Pope in the year 1711. This work was inspired by Horace's Ars Poetica and Boileau's L'Art Poétique. It is the source of famous quotation, "To err is human, to forgive is divine." Rape of the Lock is a masterpiece by Alexander Pope. It was published in the year 1712. The Dunciad is a mock heroic satire in which Alexander Pope attacks various figures in the literary world of his time. John Gay was a part of the Scriblerian Club. He wrote a parody, The Shepherd's Week. He is best remembered for The Beggar's Opera. Two of his biggest and most famous pieces were A Modest Proposal and Gulliver's Travel. In this video, we covered the Restoration Age and the Augustan Age. In part 2 of the 18th century British literature, we'll be covering the Age of Johnson. Till then, stay safe and enjoy learning. And please do not forget to subscribe my channel. Thank you.